Welcome to the Root of It All podcast with Tree, where you will learn new habits for human betterment. We talk about all things related to personal growth, and everything is on the table. Each episode will explore different topics like self-care, mindfulness, goal setting, and more, with a focus on practical tips and actionable advice you can start implementing in your life today. Our goal is to help you become the best version of yourself and live a more meaningful life. So grab a drink, cozy up, take your dog for a walk, or go for a drive. Join us for some fun and meaningful conversations with some amazing humans. Let's grow together.
Hello, everybody. So I have an amazing guest today, Sunny from Bounce 102.9. I have a little bit.
You got it.
I have a little bit of dyslexia, so I almost mixed up the 9 and the 2. So 102.9. And so thank you. This is amazing for coming here.
Well,
in
thank you for having me,
in
Tree.
person.
Well, I'm one of these people that when I get asked to do something like this, I know you would ask me,
Yeah.
you can do Zoom or you can come in. My Zoom days are over. I love the experience of being back with people and being around people. So as soon as you told me, well, do you want to come in here and do a podcast? I thought I would love to. And to be honest with you, I've done many broadcasting platforms. This is my first podcast.
Is it?
Yeah, so I'm very excited to be here. I wanted to see how this all comes together. So there you go.
So and even I was telling you that I'm playing with like some lighting and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think, do we look at this or do we look at each other?
Yeah, well, I'm looking in and I would like to explain to everybody I'm having a bad hair day, so that's okay. Well, I'm okay with it the way it is.
That's okay. Bad, yeah. Like, and what we were just talking about is forgetting names.
Oh.
Yeah. And part of it, so tell people what you were just saying,
Well,
that you can remember when you meet people.
No, I know you meet a lot of people in your line of work as well. And over the years, I mean, I've been doing radio in Hamilton for almost 34 years, and I've actually been in radio since 1980. But in my adventure or my chapter of my life here in Hamilton, I've met people have come and gone in my life, and I've been to a lot of events where I see people on a very regular basis. Now, all these years later, and I was really young when I started, so years later, you see these people, and I'll see them, and I'll go right, they'll come over to me, Sunny, it's been so long, and I can tell you every conversation I've had with them, and then the name comes up, and it's like, what is your name? I've tried every method you can think of. I've been standing next to a colleague of mine and go, hi, this is Johnny. I work with them, and hoping that they'll say their name, and they don't. And I'm hoping that they'll come back.
Yeah.
Like I thought that strategy might work. So I'll try to get the name off that person. And one of the strategies I use that I hope works is I'll be standing next to a colleague of mine and, I'll say, this is John. We've been working together for years, hoping they'll say, well, hey, my name is Susie or Carol. And they don't say anything, hoping the name will come out. So I've known them. And it's funny, how can I remember those minute details, like things about them that they've told me, situations, but I can't remember something as simple as their name.
Yeah, and from a human behavior perspective, it's really about that you're in the minutia of the conversation. So you remember a lot about how that felt, which allows you to remember about the dialogue. And the interesting thing about you and I, that we're the same, having a name like Sunny or Tree, like everyone remembers it.
Yes, exactly.
So it's so easy to remember. And I remember walking downtown Toronto, because I used to work in Toronto quite a bit, and this person just came up and went like, "Hey, Tree," and I'm like, oh my God, I had nothing at all. And I'm like, and the way that the things that they were asking me and talking to me about, I'm like, this person knows me.
I know, isn't that
And
the
I
best?
felt so bad. So I started, my common things are like, so how's work? And I'm like trying to get something out of them, right? And so, or what I'll say is be like, oh, how do you spell your last name again? And that works most of the time because last names aren't as easy. But this time it was like Smith. And I'm like,
and then you hope that works. But I wonder if you encounter this too, because maybe clients you run into. The gym I've been at for many, many years, and I'll be somewhere and someone will come up to me and go, oh, you know Carol from the gym. And it'll be, who? and like because they said, oh, she says you're a really close friend of hers. And this, again, I've had maybe a small conversation with her, maybe about her children or grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
and it's turned into for them. And it's not, I'm not trying to be mean, but for them, it's become a very close
Yeah,
friendship almost, you know?
yeah, it was the highlight of their day
Yeah,
even. Yeah, that they felt close to you,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Which brings us to the next thing that we wanted to talk about is about being on, right? Like so many people that I work with, that they're business people, they'll go to like a networking event or go to different functions, and they automatically feel like they need to be on. And
Do you
yep.
think though that part of that when it comes to being on is that like wait till you meet my colleague. They're
Mm,
funny, they're outgoing, they have already given you an introduction
mm,
that you feel you have to live up to. Now with
true.
me, they don't usually have to do that because I usually fulfill everybody's expectations, what they may or may not think of me. Because I think the greatest compliment anybody can ever pay me is when I'm out or when I'm on the air
Hmm.
and then I have MC an event, somebody go, "Oh, Sunny, I can't believe you're just the same as you are on the air. You're so normal," or what I that which brings up
Yeah.
that on feeling you have to be someone else or have some sort of personality that isn't
Hmm.
yours, which I don't know how you can do that successfully if that's not you.
Well, and I think the thing is too is that what you do for a living, and I fall into that same category that people when they meet me, they're just like, "Oh wow, like you're just the same," or they might see me in the media or something like that, and then they meet me in person, but they in their own mind put this facade sort of because what I do for a living or whatever, that when they meet me, they're like, "Oh, you're so grounded." And so, but it was them that they put it on, where yes, you're in the industry that is so well suited for you. You're a grounded human being, and so you don't need to have a different personality, whether you're on air or off air, which is awesome. A lot of people um, can't be as, I don't know if the word's vulnerable or grounded, to be able to do that.
So when we talk about being on, I think the other thing too is if you
Yeah.
say, okay, I've been doing morning radio for so many years, or the position you're in, I think that sometimes when you meet someone new, they feel, okay, what I do just isn't enough. So I'm gonna overcompensate and
Mm.
create a character that doesn't
Yeah.
really exist because I don't feel I'm good enough, which is really like, don't do that. Be you. I love you to be you. I don't care what you do and if, you make dresses, I think that's fabulous. That doesn't make me better or you better. It's just, we
Yeah.
all have different professions and things that we do in our lives. I think sometimes that's part of it. It's
Hmm.
it's pressure to be somebody you're not because you don't feel maybe you're good enough.
Yeah, or you're in fear of how people are viewing you, of
Yes.
what it is
Yeah.
that you're making up in your head. Where absolutely we are all just ordinary human beings. There's nothing there's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about you. We're
Yeah.
just loving what we do. We're sharing. We're um, engaged in other people. We genuinely love and care about all humans and want all humans to do amazing things.
You know what, Trey? I got to tell you a story. When I was
Yeah, yeah.
working in Winnipeg, there was a guy I did the morning show with, Kevin McGowan. He's not around anymore, God bless his soul. But he was the kind of guy he was trying to teach me to be me. And I'd come into work because I really took it really seriously. I was doing morning radio. They were giving me a chance on the radio. And I did just that. I was somebody I wasn't. I'd come into work with a suit on, I'd be all dressed up, and I'd get on the air, and he knew that there was a funny person there, and I couldn't do it. I would get on the air and I would be stiff and afraid and scared. So one day when we got off the air, he looked at me and he said, "I don't understand why you're dressed up like that." He said, "You look really uncomfortable." And he said, "This is not you. What are you doing?" And it was the
Mm.
greatest piece of advice he ever gave me because the next day I went to, the Levi jeans and the relaxed shirt and realized, yeah, I don't know what I was trying to prove. And
Mm.
maybe to an extent, maybe in the beginning when I started was doing this because I felt like this was my big break. So I had something to prove. But if I continued down that road, I probably wouldn't be where I am now,
Yeah, well,
you know?
good for him for calling you out on that and to actually give you like, because I think it probably gave you permission as well. And that brings me to a question. So back then, working like, has all of your people on air that you've worked with
Yeah.
met men?
Yes, that I've done radio with. Yes, it's all been that. Because when I started in radio,
Hmm.
women were just getting that notoriety.
Yeah.
So I was one of the few women in the beginning, because it's been since 1980. So if I got a position, or when I got a position, I was doing the jig of joy because there were so few positions out there. And when I started doing radio in Winnipeg, I started out doing what was called the evening all night show, midnight until 6 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And it was Kevin and the other business management team who heard me and said, you have great potential. We'd like to try you on the morning show. So that was my big break.
Awesome.
So I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me. And that's when I decided I needed to wear a suit and start bringing a briefcase. I couldn't be me anymore. So I think it was because having that big break, I thought this is really huge. So yeah, it was at a time when they were taking a chance having a female co-host or a female on the show. It's the beginnings of that, really. So now, I mean, it goes without saying, you're going to have equal parts everywhere now, men, women everywhere on shows.
And it's interesting. I think that's an example what a lot of people do, even if they're going for a job interview, they'll dress a certain way thinking that that's what the business wants them to portray, even if they got the job and so people listening to this, really be yourself and be curious if you're getting in your head, even when it comes to dating. Like people dating that they get in their head about they need to be like this or they need to be like that. Where the more that you're yourself, the easier it is to actually connect with people and the easier it is for people to connect with you as well.
Well, and I think too, you talk about, dressing a certain way. It's only going to be a matter of time before the real you comes out anyway. Because because that happened to me. I thought, how long can I go on wearing this suit? I would wear this outfit. And I remember Kevin laughing his head off at me and going like, what is that you have on? And I think about it now, Matt, the guy that I do the morning show with, if I walked into work with a suit on, he would kill himself laughing and going, what? Because most of the time I'm wearing, Blue Jays clothes when it's the Blue Jay season, though, because I'm a big sports fanatic.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm at my best. I feel my best because that's really me.
Yeah.
We're like everybody else. So I think that you can, put on that show, but can only last for so long.
Absolutely. It's actually funny. A gal that worked here for a brief moment.
Yeah.
I went through this stage. I don't know. My body was changing because I was like working out a lot, and so just I was gaining muscle in certain parts and losing weight in other parts, and so for whatever reason, I was just wearing like pants and blazers. It was easy too because you just pants, blazer, and I just threw a t-shirt on underneath. And because every time that she met me, that over, I guess, a year or whatever, that she just assumed to work here, you had to wear a blazer. So even for her shift, she's like, it's really hot in here. Is it okay if I take my blazer off? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, I thought I had to wear a blazer to work here. I'm like, and so it's funny with the rules that we'll make in our head of what we think it should be, where it's totally not.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we talk about what you wear, because I think we were having a conversation because we've known each other for a while, that when I go and I'm seeing an event, it's funny that, they say come out of your comfort zone sometimes. I chose radio because I like being behind the mic and not creating image, but you get to hear about me through my voice, not constantly looking at me. Like you're hearing all about Sunny or what Sunny's life's about without constantly looking. I always envy everybody on TV because really you're under the microscope. They're constantly, your work. Hey, I'm just as guilty. You look at TV and go, can you believe that jacket they got on? So when I MC something, that's for that split second when they hear Sunni Genesco, she's, and I get up there and I think they're all looking at my top and they're all looking at my pants or my shoes. And then I get over it very quickly because that's not what I'm there for you to, that's just my reaction to the way they're looking at me. But it's more about the minute I get on the mic, that goes away.
Oh, I bet.
It disappears completely.
And so teach us about how it is like before, because before when you first started working, there was no social media, right?
No, there was nothing like that.
There wasn't even cell phones.
No, there was nothing like that. Yeah.
So how is it like today, 2025, from, what did you say, 1988? Or
I started in radio in 1980, but actually doing mornings, because in 1980 I was I had a big background in music, so I was a music director. I did a lot of music design. So I had worked different departments of radio before we really did the on-air part of it.
Okay.
So it's actually been probably since the late 80s that I've been doing like morning radio. And you're right, there has been a huge change. And I think way back when, you walked into a radio station with a huge staff, and that included a big newsroom, it included people who were answering phones, a big promotion department. And then, internet comes into it, and, all these other various social media platforms have started to keep coming in and coming in. And that made your base of information broader, but it also changed the way radio stations and TV stations work in general. You walk in, you don't see nearly, it's not that it's replaced staff. I don't want to say that, but it has replaced a lot of places, a lot of departments that you don't necessarily need anymore because news is so immediate now. Information is so readily available now. You used to have departments where they were looking up, they were constantly researching and that. So it's unbelievable when I think back and how hard it was to, like, you only had a newspaper. I can't tell you how much money I spent on magazines looking for information stuff and things like that. And you think now I get a notification, so and so, can you believe so and so just got married, like somebody in Hollywood,
like that.
It's so immediate. So it's unbelievable when I think of how much that has changed in our world and how fast it's changing. So people say, how long is radio going to last? Well, the thing is with radio and with even TV, because there's streaming platforms and the normal like ABC, NBC networks that we started out with have now tripled and there's all these other, there's always going to be there's always going to be competitive other media platforms to choose from for you. But I always think, especially during when COVID hit, I remember Matt and I being on the air and how big our audience grew. And I think the reason behind that was we went through a time period where people were so unsure of what was going on in the world. So they knew we have Sunny and Hayes, the morning show, and they've been here for so long that they're my comfort zone.
Well, and it's in real time.
Yeah, in real time. Because everything was just, what is going on around here? And it just continues to be that way. Let's face it. I mean, my phone, if I switched over to, I was an Android user, and the guys at work told me, you got to become an iPhone user. Well, I got so many notifications. Because, are you a doctor? And I've got to learn to take the things and shut them off because I've become so into everything that's going on around me. And it's not gossipy stuff. It's just that you're just getting so informed so quickly. It's incredible.
It's almost too much. It's almost too much information. Like, I still listen to the radio. I love the radio, and because it is in real time, and you feel like you're part of the family even.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what it is. I think what ends up happening, let's face it, a lot of shows that are out there you think are happening as we speak, and they're not. They may have been pre-recorded or done like ages ago, and all of a sudden you go, oh, look at this brand new. No, it's not. And that sort of stuff. So I think what it is especially when I go on the air, I think I learned a long time ago, in my early days, about not being somebody else, is that, not everybody's going to like you. And that's something you have to learn about yourself. If you're going to be honest and give your opinion about something, not everybody's going to go, oh, yes, I agree 100%. It wouldn't be fun anyway.
No.
Matt and I, the gentleman I do the morning show with, Matt and I have been successful at what we're doing for over 30 years. I attribute that to the fact that we're absolutely opposite in personality. There are a lot of things that we have in common, but there's so many things that set us apart. And I think that's what makes us unique and different, and why our show has lasted as long as it has. Because, he'll say something and I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. And he does the same with me. I mean, it's yes, no, and this is the way it is. And letting people see a side of you that you're sharing with them. And I think what's really interesting, a lot of people say, oh, I know so much about you. I also consider that a compliment, because you really don't. I let you in my world. But if it's big to you and it's a lot, then that's great. I've done my job. But I think I'm sharing with people what I think a lot of people are thinking or going through at the same time.
Yeah, so you're being relatable. And
yes, yeah.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about having opposites, like all the businesses that I've worked with, the best businesses is that the owners are opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you need like it's a bouncing board off of. And even with both of you talking, that people are going to agree with one side or the other. Sometimes they're going to agree with you, sometimes they're going to agree with Mike, right? Is that his name?
Matt.
Matt.
Yes.
See, I'm not good with names. Not good with names. I even met him actually. I just missed you. I was in the studio. I was going to see Victoria,
Yes, yes.
and he actually showed me the whole studio
Oh, did he? Okay,
and
yeah,
all of the
yeah,
new technology and all that stuff. And the interesting thing about us as human beings, I want to loop back to what you're saying, is that
yeah,
not everybody's going to like you.
yeah.
And it's so true. And I live by this 20-20-60 rule, because even if I'm doing a talk in front of like hundreds of people, I walk into that talk knowing that 20% are just not going to like me. And it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I might look like an ex-girlfriend that they don't get along with, or a sister they don't get along with. I might look like just in general something that they don't like, or they were dragged to the event by somebody and they didn't really want to be there. So I always walk into anything that I'm doing, I know 20% are just not going to like me.
That's probably the best way to look at it, because I
Yeah.
think what I fought for so many years was, oh, you don't like, somebody may not like me. How can, and I think we end up a lot of times when we're not real is because we're saying things you think they want you to,
Right.
they'll like me if I say this,
Right.
which may not be anything like you,
No,
or you may not even agree with that.
and it's not even your own truth as you're
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah.
So yeah, if you or I operated in that way with our audiences, then it's not a good way to be. You need to be speaking your own truth, and that's why what you do is so well received, because it is you're speaking your own truth. But also too, the 20-20-60 rule. The other 20 is that when you walk in, people are just going to love the crap out of you. 20% is just going to love the crap out of you, because you might look like somebody who they're really close with. You might look like a sister or a mother or something that they have a great connection with, or just the energy might be like that. And the other 60, right? And that analogy, it's actually everywhere. You look at all the clothes that you have, right? 20%, some might have tags on them still, and you don't wear them at all, right? Like the other 20%.
You can't bring up the clothes thing. I have many problems with the clothes. I have so many clothes and I only wear 3 of all the clothes I have. It's ridiculous.
So the top 20% you wear the crap out of, and then the middle 60, right?
But you know what, Tree? You mentioned dating, and I think that's the same for people who date. It's the same sort of theory. I think, okay, I'm going to meet this person for coffee, or they met them on an app, or wherever they met them, and they've got all these images of how they're going to be when they meet them. And every time I've got girlfriends who've done all that. They said, oh, they were nobody I thought they were going to be like. Their profile was such a certain way. Well, if you've written these things about yourself, and you said this is who you are, and then you are actually going to meet this prospective person, and you're not that person, why bother? Why bother giving that kind of information or saying you this way if you're not? That's part of it too.
But it's also the way that you receive information. So you and I, we are pretty much towards pleasure people. Like we always see the glass half full. We see the positives. If there's anything negative, we just like do the quick fire walk and then get to the other side and then see what's positive about it. See what the silver lining is of whatever. Where not everybody operates in that way. So even when dating, that example that you gave, somebody saw a profile or whatever, that they're towards pleasure. So they're picking out the things in the profile that they believe is positive. And what happens with people like us is that we end up in disappointment more often. Right? As opposed to another way that people are is they can look for things that's wrong with things. And then when the actual situation comes about, it's generally better than what they think. So going back to the profile, if somebody looked at me and went like, oh, well, oh, well, oh, well. And then all of a sudden they met the person and be like, oh, this is nice.
See, I always like it, and people have always said this. Now I'm getting on this dating thing because it's got nothing to do with me. But I always get these people who say, you meet someone, they go, oh, I cannot believe you don't have anyone. Like you get that all the time with friends of mine. Why can't you? Like, I don't understand. You got all this personality. You have a great job. What's wrong with you? You're thinking, oh, there must be something extreme. And I'm not talking about me, but just friends of mine who have been dating or looking for people. And I see them as they've got so much to offer, but yet they constantly run into, like this situation where no, they're no good. No, they're not good enough for me. This isn't good.
So that's a version of they're picking out everything that's wrong with it.
But what about pointing at yourself. Sometimes I think about
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And that's what
Yeah.
I always say. I think the biggest thing with me is when I first got into radio, I was so obsessed with being so perfect, which
Mm.
what I'm not in any way. And when I realized the part about me that's the funniest is all of my imperfections. Our show is about the most ridiculous things that happen to me on a regular basis. I'll come into work with
Yeah.
Matt, the guy I do the show with, and I always say, Matt, you won't believe what happened to me yesterday. And he can't wait to share with everyone because he's got such a humorous way of looking at things. And in a sweet way, he will say, like, Sonny, you got to tell everybody what happened. And it's something very relatable that somebody will know. It's something that, me and my obsession with wanting to get my car washed, or I have an obsession with having a lot of clothes that I never wear, things like that. But I
Yeah.
think it's funny, struggly things that everybody kind of goes through.
Or has a version of it.
Of
Their
it, yeah, they
version
all,
of it,
yeah, a
right?
relatable version
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, whether it's like needing to have your car perfectly clean, or whether it's like for me, I have to have, if I'm wearing something, things need to match, right? Like, so I have matchy
You got the boots, everything's got to
yeah.
go. Yeah, yeah. With me, it was always the hair thing, because my mother would always say to me, I had a very strong, strict Italian background, and my mother would always say, we'd be having breakfast, and she goes, your dad and I were talking, and he doesn't like your hair. My dad be looking at me like, I never said anything like that, because my mother was always trying to find ways. She wanted to curl my hair and treat me like I was her little baby from when we were
Oh
little.
my gosh.
And, you got to curl your hair. It looks so much better when oh, mom. So it's funny, these things when you're growing up. And it never like it affected me in any way as I got older, but
Yeah.
she always, with certain things, if your hair was really, curled up, everybody would just be crazy over you. Yeah, ma, okay, well,
Right. So
yeah.
she took a lot of time thinking about
Well,
it.
yeah, she was hilarious that way, but I mean, her sense of humor was where I think I got my sense of humor from, for
Awesome.
sure. Yeah.
Are you an only child, or?
No, there's 5 kids in my family.
Oh, wow.
And it's an interesting dynamic because with the 5 kids,
Mhm.
there is almost 20 years difference between the youngest and oldest in my
Oh.
family.
Oh, wow.
So they, like my mother had little groups of kids, and my little brother David was born, when my mother was approaching her 40s when she had David. So we've all got different ages and all very close and all very different fields of work. In
Wow.
our lives. Yeah.
So that's neat. So if it's almost 20 years apart, the older kids were almost on their way out when the younger kids were just there.
Absolutely.
Wow.
My brother and sister were in college and university when my little brother was born. She was headed to university. So it's interesting how that all played out. And we're all so very close, but yet we're also very different, the 5 of us. It's funny. It's funny. Now, my brother and sister, my mom and dad, it's an interesting story about my parents and my upbringing, because my dad came to Canada from Italy 2 years before my mom, at a time period when,
yes,
back
I
in the,
heard,
when he came to Canada, my uncle sponsored my dad. So he came and he told my mom, I have Canada and Australia chosen. I want us to have a good life, but I want our kids to have an even better life. And he didn't see that in Italy. So he came to Canada. He went to school to learn English, started working, and sent for my mom. Well, my brother and sister were born in Italy. So my mom came, by boat, Ellis Island, New York City, with 2 little kids back in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So it's a story, really.
Yeah.
We think about, when your kids go away and you go, oh, I'm going to miss them so much. And my parents left their parents and never saw them again. And, that's what you did.
It's interesting times. Last year, my husband and I, we toured all around Sicily.
Oh.
Yeah. And
have you got Italian background?
No, my ex was Italian.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
But when we were touring around Sicily, a bunch of the tours that we did in each little town that we went, that they mentioned about, there was that in that era around like the 50s.
Yeah, that was my dad. Yeah.
That all of the men heard that there was work in Canada.
Yeah.
So they all came over, and some of them were saying that a lot of them didn't come back for their wives. They just stayed there.
Yeah, there was. I heard stories like that. My mom and dad told me stories like that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because even it was like anyone listening to this, if you've ever been to Europe, I think going to Europe, it's a very much an eye opener, or traveling in general, because us here in North America, everything is so new. And so when you go over to Europe, or even people that came here, imagine how new everything was here in North America in the 50s.
Well, and when my dad came here, he didn't speak one word of English. Like, I think of my dad and I look at him as a hero. And
Yeah.
my uncle sponsored him, but my uncle couldn't speak English either. My dad went to school, learned to speak English, sent for my mom 2 years later. And then 2 years later, I was born, and then the rest of us were born here. And my brother and sister were like 5 and 6. Like, they were just little teeny kids when they came here. And I can't get over them doing that. My dad came via Nova Scotia. My mother came via New York alone.
And that's phenomenal,
Yeah.
because imagine even falling in love, getting married, having kids, and then not being able to see your lifelong partner or your kids for 2 years.
Yeah, like,
Like,
oh, crazy.
that would never happen in this day and age, but then it had to, because
and what I think I learned from them and my parents' relationship, and importantly, was my dad could not. My dad was so attached to my mom, and like, my Italian friends can say, no, this is relatable. You go to the mall and you see all the old retired Italian guys. They all get together for coffee and
Yeah.
espresso at the mall.
Yeah.
My mother couldn't get my dad to ever do that. He adored my mother so much. When he retired and they were retired, he stayed by my mother's side all the time. She'd go, don't you want to go to the mall with the other guys? And she, no, I want to be here with you. And it was like, my mother couldn't get over it. But I always thought that was because my dad still missed her from way back when, like all these years later. But I mean, they were in Canada like 57, 57, 58 years. I mean, my dad was such a proud Canadian, and so glad he came here first and not Australia, because he loved Canada. They both did.
Yeah, it's an awesome country, and it's so diverse when you look at it, and it's so new, so fresh. So yeah, there's so many great things about Canada.
Well, and I think about here in Hamilton in particular, with the Italian population here in Hamilton. When I was working in Winnipeg, it was all Ukrainians, and there were no Italians in Winnipeg. Like, it was kind of interesting, because most of the immigration that took place there were Ukrainians that went there, Polish people. There were some Italians, but most Italians way back when in the 50s came to Niagara region, Montreal. Was a very heavy Italian. Yeah, so it just, depending on whose relatives lived where, that's where they went.
Well, and the interesting thing that I find when I'm working with different businesses, depending on the background of the business owner, is how they actually run their business. So I have this one company, and they're predominantly Italian. I'd say about 30–40% of the people working there are Italian. And they very much operate in like respect and loyalty. And that, so if somebody within the company, if they do something different than how somebody else would do it in the company, then it's almost like their nervous system is like disrespected, where it's completely oblivious. And I think different nationalities have different ways. Like, even Eastern European clients that I have, they're almost in fear of being reprimanded if they don't do sort of what their ancestors did. In terms of like getting married, having kids, like they feel the pressure of certain things, which I find interesting.
I totally see that. And the thing is too, if there's one thing that my parents taught me, was that very strong work ethic. I mean, I work, especially when I got into this business, I was so hungry for the whole business and wanting to learn all aspects of radio. And I would, be on location here. I'd be doing that. And then I realized there was a little bit more to life than just that, but it was still very important in my life. And when I talk about my upbringing, I always, not that I was ever afraid to talk about being Italian, growing up Italian, speaking a language. I love sharing that with our audience. And I always love it, because we'll get a lot of our listeners go, oh, Sunny, I remember that when I was a kid too. My mother used to do the same thing. There's a story that I always tell about growing up Italian that Matt can't get over, and everybody relates to this. And if you're my age group, and if you're a person of a certain age, my mother every morning used to make us for breakfast. And I know it sounds like but you take an egg and you scramble it in a cup with a little bit of sugar. And sometimes my mother would put a little spot of espresso in it. And we had that every morning for breakfast.
Oh, wow.
Now, you think, raw egg and sugar. It was the most delicious thing. I couldn't.
So it wasn't cooked.
No.
Oh my
She
gosh.
scrambled it up, you drank it. It was so delicious.
Oh my
As a
gosh.
little kid, you know how many
Wow.
Italians grew up with that as their breakfast? You think if you when you tell us or anything, what was wrong with your family? They're trying to kill you.
I am
Well,
actually gonna try that.
it
I
is
am
the
actually gonna
most
try that.
delicious thing. Now, the other thing, once in a while, that my mother would do with that, would she'd put a little marsala in there too.
What?
Everyone, marsala is a kind of a sherry. You
Oh,
put a drop of
okay.
the sherry in there. It was delicious. And you tell the story, and Matt goes, I can't believe your mother did that. But I
Oh my
couldn't believe
gosh.
how many Italians responded to that and said, I grew up
Mm.
with that too. It was something of that era that they fed us when we were kids. I loved it.
Is it a certain part of Italy, maybe? Like
I don't know. I'm Abruzzese is our
Mm.
background. It's Molizano. It's just below Rome. We're about an hour and a half outside of Rome on the
Okay.
Adriatic side.
Okay.
And it could be that because there's so many
Mhm.
regions in Italy, but I couldn't believe how many Italians could relate to it.
Yeah.
You know, some of the stories they would tell. I mean, it's part of your life. It's that what I've said in the past, opening yourself up to everybody and saying, you know
Yeah.
what, this is what I was when I was. This is what we did when I was a kid.
Mhm.
You know.
Well, talking about like newcomers coming to Canada, I remember my ex, his mom, whom I was very close with, and just the most beautiful woman. And I remember her telling me in her broken English that she didn't know the money, like the Canadian
Yeah.
money, so she would like go to the store and she'd just have like the change, because and she would just hold her hand out, and the person would like take the money out of her hand of what it
So
was.
true. I used to
Yeah,
see that all the time when I was
yeah.
a kid. And they go, well, what is it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, what is the most surprising thing when you became a radio host? What's perhaps one of the most surprising things that you realized that you could either do well or that you had to work on?
You know what I've realized in my experiences,
Mhm.
what that I'm really good at, I think,
Yeah.
is making conversation with the hardest people you can make a conversation
Mm.
with.
Mhm.
I've been in public so many times with people that I've met and we've had a great conversation. Someone will come up to me afterwards and go, how did you get all of that out of them? And it's
Mm.
kind of it's you learn to, because I go to so many events where I'm at a table with say 10 or 12 people, I don't know any of them.
Yeah.
And it's trying to create conversation that isn't offensive in any way and staying away from
Mhm.
topics that doesn't get people. But I always feel like I'm really good at being the person at the table
Mhm.
who can do that. It's one of my favorite shows is Curb Your Enthusiasm. And there's an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where they said, that person sits in the middle chair. They were having dinner one day and they said, that's the person that creates it. I'm the middle chair person. I have the ability to sort of
Mhm.
involve everybody in such a
Mhm.
way that it isn't centered around me or any particular person. And can I can bring them all together in some way. And I always feel that's a great accomplishment. The on-air thing is a big accomplishment too, because let's face it, they say the biggest fear people have is public speaking.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
you always say, I get people all the time, oh, I can do that job. Yeah, try it.
Oh,
Try it.
yeah.
You know, when they say, I know how
Yeah.
to do that job, I don't think so.
No, it's not as easy. It's not as, we were talking earlier because you are an officiant.
Yeah,
now.
well, I became a wedding
Yeah,
officiant.
yeah.
It was one of those bucket lists. And Matt, again, always says to me, you know, bucket lists are for places. I said, well, I've got a mixture, you know, careers, places. And I wanted to be one so badly. And I've done about, you know, 30, 35 weddings, not, you know,
Mhm.
not that many. But when I told a couple of people that I know, acquaintances that I was doing that,
Mhm.
right away, everybody says, oh, that's what I wanted to do. Well, why
Mhm.
haven't you done it?
Yeah, well, because not everybody can stand up in front of, think about how many people go to a wedding. Most weddings are like 100, 200
Yep.
people. So not everybody can stand up and be the center of attention because being an officiant, you're being filmed. You're going to be in somebody's video. You're going to be in everybody's picture, and not everybody can do that.
I got to tell you, one of
Mhm.
my earlier weddings I did was at White Oaks. It is a
Oh,
beautiful
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. In
hotel
Oakville.
in Oak. No,
Yeah.
no, in Niagara.
Oh,
In Niagara.
there's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
wedding in. Oh, okay,
yeah. White
okay.
Oaks, and it's a spa and the wedding venue.
Oh.
Absolutely five-star, gorgeous place. And I remember it was a hot day in June or July, and I get there and it's mayhem. There are people staying at the hotel. There's the area where the weddings are taking place. And all of a sudden they show me where the venue is because I was arriving on the Saturday of the wedding and we didn't need a rehearsal. I think with most officiants, you don't need to do that. So I get there and it is this beautiful garden overlooking people that are staying there. There was like a dining area. Everybody was going to see me do this wedding. And I thought, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And again, the wedding started and I just went into it. So it all worked out. But it was not just a wedding with those 150 people, but everybody in the whole place saw it. On my way out, there's a guy sitting up at the bar and he turns to me and goes, oh, that was a great wedding. Success, even the bar guy, like, so I mean, yeah, it really takes you out of a, but I think that's
Yeah.
probably why I did it. It took me, I like being out of my comfort zone. I like being challenged that way.
Yeah.
Because I never want everything to feel like, oh, it's another day. Maybe that's why I chose radio from the start.
Oh yeah, and
You
I'm
know?
I'm the exact same way, and I think that's why you and I get along so well, is just because we can relate on so many levels.
Mhm.
Just we love the challenge. We honestly love and care about all human beings. We both, you and I, we have zero judgment.
Yes.
Right. And that's what, going back to how people, you can talk to anyone,
Yeah.
even people that think that that person's hard to speak to,
Exactly.
is that you have zero judgment. And that's an energy thing. So energetically, you're very settled in your human body. You're very grounded. And it gives people the opportunity to be open, be vulnerable. I know my best friend, she teases me all the time because anywhere we go, everyone will just randomly talk to me and about like intimate things. I remember being in a clothing store. I hate shopping.
Yeah.
But my best friend loves shopping, and I love walking around. So I normally, like, I hate shopping, but I'll just follow her around and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So she's in this clothing store, and I just happen to be walking, and I literally almost follow her around. I keep a distance. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like her paparazzi
Yeah,
when we're
yeah.
going, right? And this woman came out of the change room, and she had this dress on, and all of a sudden she opened up. She's a cancer survivor, and she's like telling me all of these things about her life and everything. And meanwhile, my friend's like grabbing my arm. She's like, "Come on, we gotta go!" Right? And I'm just like, and all the time, no matter where we are, and I don't know what it is that, like, just people like open up and talk to me about things. But also too, like, you and I, another thing is that we want to see people do well.
Oh, well, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
we really want to see people do well. Any human being, we just want to see all human beings go well.
But I can see that in you, especially when you said, like, it's funny how many people will say or give us information when Matt and I have been at events and people will say, I just found out that, she and her guy, they're getting a divorce. And it's like, what? Why would they tell you that? And I said,
Yeah.
I think they just see that in your face, or there's
Mhm.
there's an expression on your face that says, yeah, you can tell me anything. You're not, don't worry about it. But again, you
Mhm.
always wonder someone that, an acquaintance that you don't know that well, how they are so able to just let that all out.
Mhm.
Makes them feel good, I guess, they want to talk to somebody,
Mhm.
and you're the candidate they could choose, I guess. I mean, it's strange, but that's happened to me too. I've gotten that too, where people have
Yeah.
confided in me out of nowhere.
Well, for you though, if they're listening to you constantly on the radio, they feel like they've already had a connection with you. Like my husband and I, we watch a bunch of like YouTubers, like I
Yeah.
follow them. And so my husband and I were sitting on the couch, and I was like, if we actually like met them, they don't know us, but we know all about them
Exactly.
because we've watched them for 10 years.
Exactly.
Like it's like, so it's this weird thing. And even one of the YouTubers said that they bumped into somebody and they had that realization of like, that person knows me, but they don't know them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's that same kind of concept as well. And when you do sort of what we do, like out in the public, or people seeing us in like a certain um they have a certain viewpoint of us, and they feel good.
Yeah.
So people that when you're making people feel good, the common tendency is that they do feel that they can be more open.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
You hate to think that that's the only, when I've said to friends of mine, if I've met a friend of theirs and I've said, no, that's, you're going to love this person. And maybe I may not have been really crazy about them. And I'll tell them, oh, I can't believe they were like that. I've always felt really bad that I didn't get to see the side they wanted me to see them. They say, wait till you meet them, they're this, and this. I'm sure that's happened to you. And then when you meet them, they're not quite what they said they were.
Yeah.
So what were you presenting to me? Again, it's back to that not really being yourself, because at some point the real you does eventually come out.
100%. But we're all also different all the time. Like I remember, I guess about a year ago, for whatever reason, I didn't know there was something changing in my body, and so my energy level went down. And I'm very high energy,
Yeah.
just like you. And even to the point my husband's like, babe, are you all right? And even some people that I knew, not in my close circle, but they were like, are you mad at me? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow. And it was just that I needed to up my protein and change up my vitamins, and then I was all good. But when you are a certain way all the time, and that's how you are, and then something, whether it's physical or, maybe you didn't sleep or whatever, that other people can respond a different way when it comes to that.
It's funny that you say that because things like that, if there's one thing that drives me nuts, you can say all that you want, like, like I am, yeah, I'm self-deprecating humor is something I live on. I mean, I
Yeah,
can
me
through
too.
it.
Me
It's,
too.
it's a,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
say what
you
you
got
want
to.
about me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
never offended by it. But there was the prime example, a girlfriend of mine a couple of weeks ago. I got off the air and I was at the gym and she texted me a message. She goes, "Oh, hi, Sunny. I was listening to you this morning, and oh, you sounded so tired. I wasn't sure what was going on. Is everything okay?" When I read that, I wanted to call and go, "A friendship done." Like I thought the show was like, I don't know what she heard that, because I didn't really get that. That wasn't me. Now she was just expressing, but something like that will just send me. And I don't know why, because I can take criticism, no problem. But that morning I didn't understand where that was coming from.
Yeah.
But it happens. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're not, like you said, way up here all the time, and we talk about, like, when we go into work, sometimes I don't feel well or Matt doesn't feel well. We can come on the air and go, I got a really bad headache. As soon as you tell that to everybody, okay, they love that you share that. But then after that, they don't want to hear about it anymore. So
Yeah.
you got to be Sunni Genesco, and that's it. That's what I've learned. I can say, oh, I got a really bad sinus headache, but that doesn't give you permission the rest of the show to be Sunni Genesco. Oh, my head is killing me. Because if you feel that bad, then don't come in. So it's great to relate that to the audience, but I also have to be giving them the energy to get moving and out of bed and go to work or wherever they're off to.
Yeah, that's a lot of, we teach clients that to make sure that you're more focused on your outcome than indulging either emotions, or because if you're giving attention to the headache, if you're giving attention to the toothache, if you're giving attention to, say, like whatever emotion, whether it's hormonal, whether it's lack of energy, if you're giving that attention, then you're indulging that, and then your behavior is going to be that way. Where if you focus on the outcome, you focus on what it is that needs to happen in that moment, then that's where it needs to be.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
And that's for overall life in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, they love that you're honest, but they also say, you're my pick-me-up. You're the one that's going to get me out of bed. You're the one that's going to get me ready for the day. So, okay, I feel bad that you have a headache, but you still got to make me laugh, or you still got to make me smile. So, and I don't have a problem with that, but I have to usually, first thing in the morning, and if he's got a headache or something, oh, I got a headache. Okay, that's it. Okay, you got that off your chest. Now we move forward.
Well, and sometimes it works beautifully. I remember I was doing this talk in front of like 500 people, and just the week coming up to that talk, I think my dog got sick. Something happened. Like every day there was something that went on, and I didn't really sleep well. So the day I was doing this talk, it was like, I think it was like 2 hours or something, and I'm up on stage and I have the microphone. I'm talking, and I'm like, I think in my head I'm going, I think I'm gonna pass out. And I just kept on walking, and I walked out to the audience. I found an empty chair, and I was talking. I was still doing the talk. And as I was walking by, I was touching people on the shoulder. I was doing this, doing that. I sat down for a bit. I just kind of like chilled out, sat down, still talking. And then I started feeling better. And then I got back up, and I blah, 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 went back up, got back up on stage. And that was the talk. Everyone's like, oh, you are so personable. That's what everyone spoke about.
Well, that's the great thing about that.
Yeah.
And I think that
You're flexible.
Yeah, and I think when you're given a talk with people, when you say about the 20% like you or don't, those people who do really like you can have that kind of thing where if something's happened in your life and you're related to them, whether it's sad or something really good, they're with you all the way.
Yeah.
I mean, the longevity of our show has really been about the things like Matt and I have been through thick and thin in our careers and in my personal life, in his personal life. We've suffered loss, and I've, shared it. He's shared it with the audience, and I've shared it with the audience. And it's incredible how kind and wonderful these people are, even though they are really strangers, but they are your friends listening. And like you say, the YouTubers you watch, you think they're your best friends. They don't know you, but you know them. But I don't realize how much they'll come up to me and go, "I'm so sorry for your loss. I heard about that." And it's incredible. that kind of feedback, that they care that deeply for you.
Yeah,
You know?
which is an amazing thing. It talks about us as humans
Yeah.
and humanity. So I know that I've had you for I think over an hour now.
Yes.
So
Nah, not at all.
I know
The
we
time
can-
goes by
I
fast.
know,
Yeah, you and I could go on until like the middle of next week, but I mean.
So what do you want to leave people with? What's like,
Well, you know what I always say with people, whatever you want to do, or whatever you plan to do, and I think this has been the big thing with everyone, is being yourself
Mhm.
and never giving up on it. I mean, no dream is that out of the realm of possibility. If this is what, again, if you want to be a wedding officiant, why'd you tell me that's what I want to do? Just go and do it. I didn't ask anybody. I went on I looked it up and did it on my own. I mean, but that, that's my personality. I don't expect everybody to be like that. But if there's something that you really you feel is worth pursuing, you got to go for it.
Yeah.
And you know what I always like? I hate expressions, but this one I love. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You never know until you try it. Because
Yeah.
you know what I hate? Kicking myself afterwards and saying, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah, you coulda. And then, I never want to say it's too late. But there is a point when it is going to be too late.
Exactly. And everything's an experience.
Yes, exactly.
So
talk it down to being an experience.
Well, and if you do this, it could actually take you over here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it could be, maybe like in the efficient thing, it may take you down a different path and go, wow, this is what I really wanted to do. There you go.
Yeah. So get out there and do it.
Yeah, do it.
Watch there be a massive influx of like everybody wanting to be an officiant. Awesome.
How dare you people? Pick your own profession. I'm joking. Yeah, do it and enjoy whatever it is you plan to do. For sure.
Absolutely. It just means more people are getting married. That's
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of The Root of It All with Tree. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But before we go, I just wanted to remind you that you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. And we will be posting motivational quotes and behind the scenes content that you won't want to miss. You can always sign up to come live while we're filming this, or even join us online through Zoom. We always offer open question and answer after each episode that we don't record, so it's all private, but you can get more involved. So sign up for free at businessgrowthresults.com, and we're going to cover all kinds of different topics that you're not going to want to miss. And if you're looking for that one-on-one guidance or help, be sure to book a free screening. You can do that at burlingtonhypnosis.ca or call 905-634-4777. And finally, you can catch our podcast on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.